Versailles is too often described as a place of power, and people like that story, absolute power, absolute monarchy. But it's also a house and all kinds of stories taking place here. My name is Laurent Salomé and I'm the director of the National Museum of Versailles Palace. The actual name is Musée National des Châteaux de Versailles et de Trianon. It's a very special institution which is at the same time a monument, a royal palace and a museum. What we're trying to do is make this place live forever, because what is sometimes difficult to understand when you visit Versailles and with all that furniture and grandeur, you tend to forget that this place was empty after the revolution. Everything was sold. So what we do is recreate this. That means acquiring objects, because that's where you feel true history. Almost every day we hear about something in relation with Versailles. But when you acquire an object that you know comes from here, you know that you're improving the level of truth.
Ce buste de maréchal était porté disparu depuis longtemps. On en avait des vieilles photos, on ne savait pas vraiment où il était. Maréchal étant un personnage très important de la cour de Louis XIV, il était le premier chirurgien du roi. En tout cas, il a assisté Louis XIV sur son lit de mort et jusqu'à la fin, il a été auprès du roi. Je suis Alexandre Maral, conservateur au château de Versailles. Girardon, c'est sans doute le plus grand sculpteur ou l'un des plus grands sculpteurs du règne de Louis XIV. Il est capable de rendre les traits du visage avec beaucoup de réalisme, mais aussi beaucoup d'humanité, et notamment le regard, le mouvement de la bouche, l'épiderme, fait travailler le marbre comme la cire. Les bustes de Girardon sont rares, mais ils sont magnifiques. Donc découvrir un buste de Girardon, c'est vraiment un événement.
The year I presented the Girardon was my first time as my own gallery exhibiting at TEFAF. So of course it was a very, very exciting project. My name is Stuart Lockheed and I have a gallery in St James's in London called Stuart Lockheed Sculpture. When one exhibits at TEFAF, of course, one has great expectations because it does attract the greatest collectors, all the great museums of the world, and also those places you don't know. So there's that sense that there could be someone just appear that you've never seen before. And so the Girardon bust actually was going to form really the centerpiece of the stand, and I practically had the stand designed around it.
It's an object that we had no idea was going to appear at TEFAF. Alexandre, who is the specialist of Girardon, knew it from a black and white photograph. To see it suddenly in the real was one of those surprises that you have at TEFAF, and so we had to react very quickly. And that was the only time I shook hands with someone at Maastricht. So we hesitated a lot about where we should have this sculpture installed. And of course it cannot go in the royal apartments because Maréchal had nothing to do there. It's only the royal characters who are in those apartments. But he found his place as the final character in those galleries which tell the whole story from the youth, the childhood of Louis XIV to the end. Girardon as a portrait maker is really fascinating. There's a virtuosity in his sculpture.
Bust really displayed an immense skill in carving. You have embroidery around the buttonhole. He decided to take the cravat, the lace, weave it, push it through the buttonhole as if it's a real piece of fabric and not marble. There's this sense that he's moving his face very slightly. He may have just had his attention caught. And to actually give that into a sculpture, I think is the mark of a great artist.
Girardon was the great sculptor of historic, mythologic subject, and that's why it's so moving, because what you see is not an official character at the court, it's a human being.
So of course Versailles is a place that looms very large in many people's imagination. It's a multi-layered place. You need time to appreciate all these stories and all these people that have been through it. It's a story of all the inhabitants, a story of the history of art. To sell a work of art to Versailles is an immense privilege, and it's the sense of finding the right home for the right work of art. And of course it seemed to be the most fitting place and the most obvious place where it should be. I almost felt it was never mine. It was always there at Versailles.